otherwise would be, but there may be a few changes, so it depends. So you may just carry on studying, and then you just move over to to MCSA 2016, Windows Server 2016, whenever they release it. So
Yeah,
okay,
my notes should still be good because the syllabus will probably be very similar.
yeah. Ah, okay, yeah. I think so. I think no matter what, there'll still be like huge similarities, but then I'm sure that there'll be some tiny differences. And if there's one thing to learn from Microsoft exam is that if they make any changes in between products and you go to take the exam, they will be testing you on the changes that they've made. That's one thing that I've learned from Microsoft exams in the past. So if they release like some new PowerShell commandlets in Server 2012 out to, and you go to take that exam, they will be testing you on those new commandlets that they've released. So they like focusing on those changes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so let's move on for today. So today, I thought we'd do something a bit different. So hopefully, like the first, because I think this will probably be a three series hangout where we'll just talk about building a lab environment. Because just thinking about this the other day, as Taiwo mentioned also in the chat window for that. So um, you're starting to do some studies. I mean, your goal is to build a lab environment so that you can practice whatever you need to practice. So typically for most people, you use the evaluation, right? So you download the evaluation copy from Microsoft website, and then install it in your lab environment to play around with it. So eventually it expires, and now you have to rebuild your lab. So that's the situation with mine. Actually, if I just bring up my lab environment here, I'm currently trying to play around with Exchange 2016. So that's why I've got this one. Um, yeah. So I've got this SCCM infrastructure here, and I wasn't sure whether it was myself and Abdul that we were doing the last hangout where I was going to demo. Well, maybe it wasn't Abdul and someone else, and I was going to demo some things, and then I tried to log in and I found out that my SCCM evaluation has expired. So what that meant was that I have to rebuild my SCCM infrastructure, and I know the amount of time that it takes to rebuild the whole SCCM infrastructure. It's just a very long time. I have to get the prerequisite ready and then get the SQL server and all the other stuff that I needed to do, and I have to do them manually and then clean that up and do all that again. So it just got me thinking that maybe it's time to just discuss around what methods are available for us to automate our lab deployment. So today we'll be focusing on the very first one, which we mentioned in the original invitations that were sent out. So there are three methods that I know of. If you know of any other method, just please feel free to interject. So number one method is something called hydration kits. Number two method is something you've probably heard about called PowerShell DSC, PowerShell Desired State Configuration. And I wish Andrew was around for this because Andrew is a member of the community. He's done an hangout with us in the past on PowerShell disaster configuration. I think it's on YouTube somewhere. So Andrew is like an expert in disaster state configuration. He's been working with it for a long time, and I wish he was on this call. Disaster state configuration. So that's one method, and then we have another method, which is if you're going to be using like um, Azure to build your labs. Microsoft currently have some free useful. So Azure IT Pro Cloud Essentials. Um, so this is a good one. So yeah, so you can go register for this. Anyone can go register for this. Microsoft will basically give you. So normally, if you want to sign up for an Azure subscription, you have to sign up for it for just 1 month. But with this, you get extended trials, and that is up to 3 months. So you get 3 month access to Azure, to Office 365, to the full enterprise mobility suite, which is really powerful and really popular these days. And they will also give you a voucher for free training to Pluralsight. So it's a really good one. It's 100% free, and you get all these benefits as part of that. 1 minute. Um, Yeah. So you get like the benefits you get all these benefits for free. So if you've not signed up yet, so you can sign up for it. And one of the advantages to that is that you can basically use this to build your labs and to play around with different technologies if you want. You don't have to have a home server somewhere. So the third one is something called Azure RM. Um, I'll say with PowerShell desired state configuration. So there are three methods I know about. So does anyone know any other method when you want to automate? 1 minute, sorry. Um, so if you want to automate like the deployment of labs, anyone know of any other method? Abdul, any other method that you know of apart from these three?
No.
No. Oh, but Taiwo and any other methods that you know of?
Now, what are the hydration kits?
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. So that's where we'll start. So that's what we'll be doing today, is the hydration kit, and we'll just be following some step-by-step guide to building this. So we'll go through that. So, but is there any other method that you know of in terms of automating lab deployment?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to use Oracle VirtualBox.
Yeah. So
I, I build a basic server and then snapshot, and then
uh,
I clone that to start new servers just to save a little bit of time.
yeah, but if you have to, oh, sorry, somebody's saying something.
Yeah, for Hyper-V, I was, using Hyper-V.
Yeah,
So I'm building one server, let's say, and shut it down, and then use this, virtual hard disk for a new deployment or for a new server.
yeah,
No need to install the OS again, and just take the virtual hard disk for the new machine.
yeah. So yeah, so that's absolutely so that's why I use in my environment also. So if I go up here, I've got like a template there, which is basically server 2012 with Windows Update already installed. So what if I want to deploy like a new server, I can always just go to that location over there. Um, oh, sorry, not that. So cancel that. Let's go back without this one. So what I can just go is I can grab this one, make a copy of this one, rename it, and then create a new virtual machine and point to that in Hyper-V. In VMware, I can just clone, or in VirtualBox, you can just clone. So that's all right, and that's still better to an extent. But the issue with that is, so for example, how do you handle a situation, Abdul, then, or if you have an SCCM deployment in your environment, the evaluation, like what happened in my environment, or like an Exchange server which I'm playing around with, so which I'm playing around with the evaluation, so it expires. Now I have to rebuild everything from scratch. So you know what that means is that I have to start again to clone this. And the process for building the Exchange server is not, or the SCCM server, it's not like a really quick one because I have to deploy a lot of prerequisites. They take a long time to deploy. So deploy the prerequisite first. There's a lot of configuration to do. Actually, I think I still have like some of the notepad that I was using today. So, I mean, look at this. So I have to prepare the environment, do step one. Okay, step two is just planning and stuff. Step three, prepare the environment. Step four, install this one with this one. Step five, run this PowerShell commandless to set this one. So there's a lot of stuff that I have to do. And the same with SCCM. So with SCM, you have to deploy the SQL server in a particular configuration. You have to deploy the prerequisite in a particular configuration. If you're using certificate, you have to generate the certificate with particular templates. And you basically, I clone the operating system, right? And then I have to spend like the next 3-4 hours rebuilding everything again, right? Is that because that's the issue that you run into with just cloning for the operating system, is it not?
Yeah, that's kind of the problem I've got at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, Abdul, what do you think? What are your thoughts on that? On Taiwo too?
I mean, I don't know the best way to go forward from that because in the past I had TechNet subscription, so I didn't have to worry about the
Yeah,
timeout.
yeah,
Now I don't know what to go do. I've been looking at things like Puppet.
good. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah.
PowerShell DSC is probably more sensible to learn as a Windows engineer.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well,
I've, I've not had a chance to look at it properly yet. That's something I'll probably do after I've done these basic exams.
yeah. Nice. Yeah. What about Taiwo? Taiwo, you've not said anything yet. So what's your own thoughts around all this?
Well, at the moment, I have no knowledge of DSC and hydration kit. I usually deploy everything manually,
Mm.
and it's always a pain
Yeah.
because I always have to deploy because I'm so used to it. I make silly mistakes.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
this would be very, very useful for me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we've not really used that much then. So it's the same as me. So I mean, let's go from scratch then. So I'll just shut down my Exchange server here. I have this. Shut this down. And then we'll start with the very first one, which is hydration kit. So now in the chat window, I'll post a link of what we will be following today. So for you to start working with hydration kit or start using hydration kit, I recommend you go through this step-by-step guide that this guy posted. So usually they are the ones that come out with like a lot of this hydration kits anyway. So where's the chat window? Okay, here we go. Yeah, so in that chat window, and I'll go over that. So let's go to this location and let's see. So yeah, hydration kit for config manager ready. Let me expand this. And this is the one that I'll be working with. So it works with both Hyper-V and VMware virtual platforms. It also works with, I'm sure it will work with VirtualBox. I've not tested it also, but I think I'm sure it's going to work. But we'll go over what it is exactly. So so it has older versions of hydration kit here. So this particular one that is just posted, this one is for deploying the new version of Config Manager. So if you're someone that you've already practiced installing Config Manager, you don't want to be going over it over and over again. You just want to quickly just get the lab ready, everything fully ready. You don't have to worry about that. And what you just want is you want the domain controller and Config Manager, everything fully ready for you to install and start working with. That's this one. But they have others also, which you can see the links to. So for example, if I click on this one, which is based on Windows 10 ADK, and if I click on this one, config manager, so if I click on this one is also similar to that. So this is just config manager, service pack 1, 2012 out to service pack 1, and this one. So there's another one that they have that has a lot of, that's config manager. So let's scroll down, config manager, config manager. So let's actually just go hydration kit. So let's search this guy's site for just for hydration kit. Config manager, system center 2012, how to config manager 2012 service pack. And let's go. Or actually, let me bring up Kindle. And because these guys that produce like a lot of these hydration kits, they have they write a lot of books, and within the books they have many of the hydration kits that you can use to deploy a lot of the things. For example, okay, deploying Windows 10 using this one. Let's see, no, not the book itself. So all we want is not the book itself. All we want is the extra materials that comes with the books. Yeah, I think I'll just and this one, deployment fundamentals, any volume 5, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I'll just open let's bring up the Kindle book. So back to the library, deployment fundamentals, where you, volume 5. Now, if I scroll down to appendix, where you, oh, back to this one. Deploymentfundamentals.com. Let's go to that link. Oh, sorry. And that's not the one. I'll just type it in. Deployment fundamentals. Fundamentals.com. Yeah, and then you've got sample files there. So if I click on sample files here, I'll post this in the chat window also. And if we go down here to, for example, Deployment Fundamentals Volume 6, download link, I can click on the download link here to download the Deployment Fundamentals 6 sample files. And within this, if that opens up, if I open up the disk image, yeah, and you can see the hydration kit for Deployment Fundamentals 6. So we'll talk about what all this is. So, but eventually what this one is doing, what is hydration kits for Deployment Fundamentals 6? What it's doing is actually going to build you a domain controller. It's going to build you all the servers in the Microsoft System Center suite. Everything, virtual machine manager, configuration manager, orchestrator, is going to build every single one of them for you. So let's go back to this one. Let's go 1 minute. Yeah, here you go. So can you see this, right?
Yep.
So it says the hydration kit for System Center 2012 R2 is available for download. And this one will actually build all this for you. So it's going to build the domain controller, the config manager server. It's going to build data protection manager server, MDT server, operations manager server, orchestrator. So you don't have to build all this manually. Just imagine a deployment where you can just go, start it. 1 minute, sorry. Can we close the door, please? Thank you. Yeah. So you can deploy all this for you, and you just have to start it up, and it's going to deploy virtual machine manager, service manager, and all these things for you. And then these guys keep releasing this hydration kit and stuff. So let's start with that first, after just showing that short introduction to that. So what are hydration kits? So hydration kit, if you've ever worked with SCCM or MDT, hydration kit is basically using SCCM or MDT to build your servers. So it's kind of like it's not kind of like they had task sequences. So in SCCM, for example, you can use SCCM to deploy your Windows client, right? Abdul is taking the exam tomorrow. Operating system deployment. So you have all the task sequences for a machine in your environment. So you have all the steps that the machines have to follow to be configured exactly the way you want it. So you configure that in SCCM, and then you deploy a machine using that task sequence. So hydration kit, on the other hand, is just using MDT. And the whole purpose is it has all these configurations for all these machines. So for example, if I bring up my machine. So for example, if you want to deploy a config manager server, you have to get the operating system ready, set a static IP address for it, change the name to whatever name that you want, and download the SCCM prerequisite and install the SCCM prerequisite. After installing the SCCM prerequisite, start the deployment of SQL Server with this particular configuration. After deploying SQL Server with this particular configuration, start the deployment of the SCCM of Windows ADK, for example, because you're going to be building system. So deploy Windows ADK into that. If you want to integrate with MDT, deploy MDT into that, then deploy configuration manager server itself with specific configuration, attach certain certificates to it. So you have all these steps that you have to go through in order to get a system center's configuration manager server ready. And all they've done is they've put all this in task sequences where you can just go click deploy and it's going to deploy it. Now we're going to see how that works in production. So all hydration kits are kits that different people have created to deploy different configuration environments. So an illustration that we'll be following through today is the one that I posted originally, which is the one for this deployment research one, the very first one. Hydration kit for System Center. So you want to play around with config manager, the latest version, which is version 16.05 now. But for you to have version 16.05, you first have to deploy the version 15.11. So with SQL Server 2014, you don't have to start building it from scratch. You can use this, and this gives you a step-by-step guide as to what to do. So you don't have to know MDT to do this. If you know MDT, you can build your own. And what that means is Abdul already has all these task sequences configured for building config manager, for building service manager, for building orchestrator. So if you want to deploy an orchestrator server, you just go build your machine to the boot image, select next, build config manager server, next, that's it. You go, come back after 3 hours or so. Config manager is fully ready with all the configuration fully there. You don't have to do anything again. So that's all that is, but you don't have to know MDT to start using it. All you need to do is to be able to follow these instructions, which is what we'll follow today. So step one, it says here, so which is the one I'm following is this one. So again, I've shared with you other ones. I'll share this one. Let me share this one with you also. So there's other ones that you can play around with in your own environment. Like I said, this one that we're going to be playing with or testing today will deploy for us a domain controller fully configured and a config manager latest version fully configured. Everything fully configured. This one here will deploy all these ones fully configured. If you know MDT, you can modify it to deploy basically any kind of server that you want to deploy. All the configuration fully there. But this one that we'll be demonstrating today is just deploying this one and this one. So it says, number one, start with download the following software. Start with download the hydration kit sample files, okay? So we'll click on that to download the hydration kit files. I download it, I open it, and this is what is inside. So again, you don't need to know MDT. If you know MDT, you already know what all this means, but you don't need to know MDT to use this. So I can see this and I know what all this means. Okay, so it says, next one, download BG info. No problems, just Google BG info download. You can see on TechNet here. Download BG info and you're good. Okay. It says download MDT 2013 build 8928. Okay. I go to Google for that. I can see the download link here. I click on it. I click download and it starts downloading. Okay. Download Windows ADK 10 build 10240. I search Google for that. I go to that link and I download that build of Windows 10 ADK. Okay, nice. So I've got that. Download Windows Server 2012 Auto. So if you have the evaluations version, no problems. Download SQL, you have that, no problem. So basically, we've done step one, which is downloaded all this. So I'll show that on my own server here. So going back to my Hyper-V server here. So I'll just power this one off. So if I go to my C drive, and I have a folder there just called downloads, and I have installers here. So all the things that they've said to download are the things that you can find here. So the hydration kit sample files is this one, which is the first one that I downloaded, is this one under downloads. So after that, they mentioned the other stuff to download. They said download BG info. I have BG info there. Download MDT 2013. I have MDT 2013 inside MDT folder here. Download Windows ADK. I have Windows ADK inside here. Download Server 2012 Auto. I have Server 2012 Auto here. SQL 2014. Download it. I have it in this folder. And it mentioned, it says, oh, you have to make sure that you download the 64-bit version for Config Manager, because Config Manager doesn't support 32-bit version. So it even gave you the URL if you don't know where to get the URL from. So that's the URL for SQL Server 2014 Service Pack 1 64-bit. So you can just click on it and download it, no problem. And it says, finally, download the latest version of Config Manager and the prerequisites, which is the other ones I've downloaded here. Config Manager latest version, Config Manager latest version prerequisites. Everything that they've asked for fully downloaded there, right? And it actually now takes you through one by one how to download the ones that you may not know how to download. For example, if you don't know how do I download the Config Manager prerequisites, it says, hey, to download it, all you need to do is download Windows 10 ADK. After downloading Windows 10 ADK, run this, and this one will download the prerequisite for you. Put it in a folder. So we got that straight. We've downloaded everything they want us to download. Step 2, prepare the hydration environment. Okay, it's the next one that they want us to do. So I'm preparing the hydration environment. It says, on the Windows machine that you use to manage Hyper-V or VMware, install Windows ADK 10, selecting only this. So on my machine here, which is the one I'm using for this demo, if I go under Programs and Features, all I've done is the Windows 10 ADK that they asked me to download earlier. I just go Windows 10 ADK, run, and I then select the option that is asked me to select, which is Deployment Tools and Windows P. So that's what I've selected here. So if I go, so it already knows that I already have Windows 10 ADK, but again, if you don't have it, just follow the download. And then I tick this to click next, 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 install, which is, so if I go down here, you see that I have Windows Assessment and Deployment Kit 10, and I have it installed already with the configuration that I mentioned. So this is my lab server that I'm doing this on. So the first one, step 1 is download the softwares that are needed. I told you exactly which software to download. Download them, put them in a folder somewhere. Step 2 is on the machine that you're using for your lab, install Windows, number 1, install Windows ADK, this one. Okay, no problem, I've done that. Install MDT that you downloaded. So if I go back to my server again, you see that I've installed MDT on this. So again, inside my installers folder, I have MDT. All I did was double clicked on it and go run, next, 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 next. So you don't have to know MDT to use this. It's just giving you step by step. Install Windows 10 ADK, install MDT, which I've done. So number 3, the hydration files that you extracted in the beginning, it said extract them and put them in the C folder. So what I've done is, because I downloaded all the software it asked me to download, including the hydration kit and all the installers. So it said this hydration kit, it said copy this and put this in the root of your C drive, which is what I've done here. So you can see I have hydration CM here already. So I've just copied this one. So going back to this one, I've just copied this one and just copied it and put it here. So is that okay so far, or is it confusing yet? Is it okay so far?
It seems straightforward. You just follow what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just, we're just following step by step. It's easy. So again, the one I'm showing is just to deploy config manager and domain controller. So you can follow this one to deploy. So let's say Taiwo, because I know Taiwo was talking about, oh, I want to do VMM and stuff. You don't have to be deploying VMM all the time. Or orchestrator, you want to deploy orchestrator, you don't have to be deploying it. We, because I used to deploy it that way in the past also. So we don't have to be deploying it all the time. So we could just have this one to deploy any one of these that we need at any time. So it goes beyond just config manager. But because config manager was what drove me to use this, that's why I'm using this as a demo. So, okay, so the hydration kit. So it says the instructions I was following. Where is that again? I must have missed something. Do I have it somewhere? Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. So install MDT on the same server, on my lab server. So I've got MDT, double click on it, next, next, next. Now I have MDT installed. So that's the next thing to do. Then it says you should now have the following folder containing the few subfolders and PowerShell script. C iteration CM source. Okay, so I've got under here, under C iteration CM, I've got source. I'll explain where all this comes from. You'll see them in the instructions later. I've got source, and this source is basically the extract of the iteration kit that we downloaded earlier. So we've done that. So he said, now in an elevated PowerShell command prompt, run the following to set the execution policy. So all it's just saying is, I go PowerShell, run as administrator. Then it says run the following to set the, so on Windows Server 2012, you don't need to set the policy, it's by default. So which is basically saying, hey, allow me to run the script that I'm about to start running. So I go run this command, enter, and that's done. So he said run that first. Then number 6, in the PowerShell command prompt, create the iteration deployment share by running the following command. So it's just saying, the source that we extracted earlier, C iteration source, inside it you find a PowerShell script. It says just run this PowerShell script. That's all. So if I go back again to my server and I go to my C drive, I'll see the PowerShell script is mentioning about here. So all I need to do is I can copy the part here and go here and go enter. Now I won't do this again because I've already done it. And if you know MDT, you already know what it's talking about when it talks about your using a deployment share. But again, you don't need, so the beauty of this is you don't need to know MDT to use it. It's based on MDT. If you want to start doing customizations later, you can do customizations. But you don't have to know MDT to use this. You just need to know how to follow 3 steps basically. Step 1, download the software. Step 2, prepare your lab server. Step 3, begin the deployment. So you just need to know how to follow these. So it's all based on MDT, but you don't need to know MDT to use them at all. So all that we've been talking about so far, there's nothing that's complicated because what these guys have done with the hydration kit is they've made it simpler by extracting the internal details. So they've done the hard work of the building the MDT task sequences and doing all that. They've done all those hard work. All they've done is now you just need to follow these instructions and you can take advantage of this. So I've run the script, which is the PowerShell script, and here, so what that PowerShell script does, if you know MDT, is it creates something called a deployment share. And if I go back to this server, you see where that deployment share is. So if I go back, that's where this DS came from. This DS came from the running this PowerShell script on the source. So after I ran this, then this DS folder and all these folders were automatically created using the PowerShell script. So now now you have this DS folder because it wasn't there before. Now you have this DS folder. Now you just follow this set of instructions. So all the software that you downloaded earlier, begin to move them into this DS folder. So it says copy the BG info that you downloaded earlier, copy it into C iteration CM DS applications. So what I've done is under my C drives under downloads, I have all these ones that it asked me to download earlier. So I go BG info, copy that, go back to my C drive, go back to iteration, go back to the deployment share that was created, and then go to applications, install BG info source. Applications, install BG info source, and just paste and paste it there. And that's basically what you're doing for the next instructions. So do that for BG info. Copy the server 2012 installation files, not the ISO. Copy them to this folder. Okay, thanks very much. So I go applications, that's DS operating systems and this one. So DS operating system, this one, and I just copied the 2012 installer here. So that's the next one. the Windows ADK, because again, remember that whenever you're going to be deploying SCCM, you have to be deploying Windows ADK and all this other stuff. You have to deploy Windows ADK, deploy SQL. So that's why it's asking you to populate this. So now just copy the Windows ADK installation files, copy them into this location. So again, I just go back to my installers, go back to C drive, downloads, the Windows ADK that I downloaded earlier. Sorry, the Windows ADK that I downloaded earlier, this one. I just copy it and go back to C, Hydration CM, DS, applications, install Windows ADK, source, and put them in here. That's all. So then next, copy the Windows ADK, copy the SQL files also. So I have the SQL files that I downloaded earlier. He even gave me the link to that. So it says not the ISO, the content of the ISO. So I go to the one I downloaded earlier on the C downloads, installers, SQL 2014, copy everything here, go back to C, Hydration CM, DS, applications, install SQL 2014, source, paste them in here. So I've done all that so far. Now I'm showing you what it's going to look like. So you have all this here now. Copy the configuration manager installation file. So basically all the things that we downloaded earlier in step 1, now we're populating them. So number 1, we download all these different files that he asked us to download. Number 2, it says, do you have this hydration kit? Run this PowerShell script in it. So I run the PowerShell script, it creates a deployment share. So now all the files that you downloaded in step 1, begin to populate them into the deployment share. So now that's what I'm doing. So config manager files, I do the same thing. And if I go back to under applications, config manager, you see under source that I have all these here. If I go back under Perex, I have all these here. So basically it's just telling you start populating them. Just copy and paste, and that's what you're doing. Copy this one that will extend. So like all these things that we have to do manually with SCCM, where we have to go, I have to extend the AD schema now, and now I have to do this. It's going to take care of all that for you. All you need to do is be able to copy and paste. So if you've done SCCM installation practice and you don't want to keep doing that over and over again, you buy a new lab computer. You don't want to start doing the deployment all over from scratch and start cloning this one manually and then deploying SQL manually and deploying prerequisite manually and doing all those manually. Don't need to start doing that manually all over again. So just copy this one, and it told you what the location is inside the config manager files that you downloaded earlier, SMS setup bin x64, the application that will extend the AD schema. Copy it inside the applications extend AD schema, which is exactly what I've done. If I go under applications, extend. So look at this. It extend AD for config manager. The certificate, you don't have to do anything. It's going to take care of all those for you. So under source, extend AD schema, put it there. Done. So what else? Now, after you've done all that, create the hydration ISO. So it told you exactly what to do. Because you installed MDT on your lab server, you can open the deployment workbench. So if you know MDT, you know what all this is doing. So if I go here and go deployment workbench, and then we're going to see what the result looks like. So deployment workbench, all this, it got all this all done. So it's task sequences, but they've built everything by themselves. You don't need to so if you know MDT, you can actually come and customize this if you want. But if you don't, that's the beauty. You don't need to know it. You just need to be able to follow instructions, and you'll be able to deploy the latest version of SCCM without you having to go through all this manually. So you can see everything is doing. It will install all the prerequisites for you. It's going to install WDS for you for distribution point. It's going to deploy IIS. It's going to install Windows ADK for your boot images. For operating system deployment, it's going to install SQL. It's going to open the right firewall ports. So that's all they're doing is just using MDT to automate the deployment. But the beauty is you don't have to know MDT. You can just take advantage of their kits that they've created. So it says next one, open deployment workbench. Then you can see all the work that they've done. It says review the nodes if you want to. Expand advanced configuration here. Select media in the right pane, right click media 001 and update media content. So advanced configuration, media 001, update media content. Now that's going to take a while. I won't do that again now. So that will take a while. It says, yeah, go for a coffee. So it's going to take a while. That's where the last ISO folder, that's where it came from. So after I right click and go update media content and then go back here, that's where this ISO folder, because in that kit that you downloaded, only source was in there originally. You ran the PowerShell script, it created this one. So the ISO is from when you go update media content. That's where this ISO comes from. And then it's going to create this ISO. And then here's the other beauty of this. So now it's created this ISO for you at the end of it. Now you can deploy the VMs. So even if you want to, they have PowerShell scripts that will create the VMs if you're using Hyper-V. So in that sense, I'm actually going to use that. So now we've done step 1 and step 2. Now it's time for us to deploy our VMs. So we deploy our domain controller first, right? We leave the domain controller running, and then we deploy config manager. So let's go ahead and do that. Deploy this one. So what they've said when deploying virtual machines is all accounts, including administrator, have a password of password. If you want a PowerShell script that will create this VM for Hyper-V, just check this folder, C hydration source extra folder for 2 sample scripts. So one for building generation 1 VMs, one for building generation 2 VMs. What do they mean by that? This is what they mean. So if I go under the C drive, if I go under hydration, if I go under source, under extra folder, they're saying if you're going to be using this, so you can use this for Hyper-V or VMware or even VirtualBox. So if you've got Hyper-V, you don't even have to, because what I have to manually do if I don't have this is I have to manually go new virtual machine, create a virtual machine, empty virtual machine for domain controller, create empty virtual machine for config manager, attach the ISO, let it boot from this ISO. Where's the ISO? Let it boot from this ISO, and then it's going to take care of the rest for you. You don't have to worry about the rest. But if you're going to be using, so if you don't want to be right clicking, and so if you're using VMware, that's what you have to do. So if you're using VMware or VirtualBox, you have to go new, create a virtual machine with the specs that you want, go under the settings of the VM, attach the ISO that was generated earlier, this one, attach it, and then just carry on, deploy whatever you need to deploy. But if, in this case, I've got Hyper-V, so I can go to source, extra, generation 1, edit it. Let's see what that looks like. So this is where I can also change the name if I want to. So yeah, so this one. So this is the script, so generation 1 VM. So if I want to and I don't want, so if I have a separate, which I do in my environment, I have a separate VM network or a separate switch to use. So if I go to my Hyper-V virtual switch manager, this is the virtual switch that I'm using. So I can change the name here. If I'm using the script, if you're not using the script, you're creating that manually, that's okay. I'm using the script, so it's already pointing to this and the location that is going to create it. I can change the name of the VM if I want, which I did in my own case. I can change the name of whatever one if I want and just run this, and then it's going to create the VMs for me. So here I'm supposed to be creating 2 VMs, one for domain controller LBCMDCO1, one for configuration manager LBCMCMO1. So going back to this one, I'll just power off my 2 domain controllers too. So you can see I don't have any LBCM machines here. So I don't have any of that here. So I'll just run this. Run script, new VM will create. So it's going to create a VM for me. Create the hard drive, set everything. And then if I go back there, now I'll see that I have two new VMs, LBCM01 and LBDC01. So all we've been doing so far is just following these instructions. So now that we have this one's created, then it says you can deploy CM01, just start it, or you can deploy your config manager server, you can deploy your Hyper-V server. Oh, sorry, your domain controller config manager server. So it said something down here. It says additional configuration notes. So by default, all accounts, including administrator, have a password of this one. If you need to change server names, IP addresses, domain names, installation, passwords in the environment, the main configuration. So it told you if you want to customize this, how you can customize this. So the main configuration is stored in the 4.ini files, the configuration files in this location. So it's telling you if you want to do some customization, even if you don't know MDT and you want to do some customization outside of MDT, go to C hydration, ISO, content, deploy, control. It says, and you see 4.ini files, which is this ones. It says that's where the configuration has. So for example, I can go edit this one. You can see what the gateway IP address is. So if you want to modify or customize this for your environment, you can just modify this. So if you don't want the domain name to be called their own domain name, which I don't want in my own case, I just change the DNS name to just my own DNS name, change the NetBIOS name to my own NetBIOS name, because DS is called via Monstra. So I just change that. So if you want to change the password from this, I change it. So if you want to do, because it's going to create a DHCP server with this list and everything, if you want to change all that, you can come here and change whatever you need to change here. So that's for the DC. If you want to change the one for the config manager, you can come here and change it too. So it basically tells you how to customize it outside of MDT. And it says, for config manager, you need to update the following files if you want to customize. So additional configuration notes are for people that want to customize. So if you want to modify the config manager server, just modify this .ini file and this .ini file also. If you need to change the various service account, you need to, so if you say like, oh, I want to change I don't want to use, or let's say you change the domain name, so it's not via Monstra anymore. In my own case, it's now Lightbulb IT. So now I have to go to that task sequence step under this one. It says, if you need to change the various service account, modify the configure AD structure WS script in this one. So if I go to this one, C hydration CM DS applications. So open that. So this is the script that will create the AD structure. It's saying if you want to change the AD structure, you can modify it here also. So basically, this is for if you want to customize it. Like in my own case, because I changed the name from via Monstra, so I just came here and replaced everything via Monstra with my own domain name, which is Lightbulb IT, which is basically what I did. And I've just done all that. So it's telling you that's what you need to do if you're going to be using that. So back to this one. So, and it says, if you change the account, make sure you modify the account here. So this is for if you're doing customizations, that's what you need to do. So let's go back to if we're not doing customizations or we're done now. So after we've done all these steps, let's begin our deployment. So I'll close this. For my config manager server, actually, I'll just do a bit to, because I think he's going to give it by default, he's going to give it one virtual processor. I want it to be much faster than that, so I'll probably give it 4 virtual processors, 16 gig of RAM, no problems. Okay. And then if I go connect to the domain controller and start it now. And look at that, because I used the PowerShell script to create it and I've already said boot from that ISO file. It's just booting it up and it will just carry on. I select whichever one I want to deploy and then it's just going to pick up from there. So let's go And you see Microsoft Deployment Toolkit starting up. So all the things that we've mentioned so far, is it clear? Or are there any questions regarding that so far?
No, looks good so far.
Yeah. What about Taiwo? Is it clear so far? Nothing is confused.
It's pretty straightforward, and I think I was going to ask about the customization, but I think you've already answered the question.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, the beauty of this is that it's using MDT for the deployment, but you don't need to know MDT. So I've posted in the chat window different deployment. So they have lots of hydration kits. I mean, if you just Google hydration kit for stuff, I'm sure that other people have like different ones. And if you are the type that buy the books of these guys, and those guys are config manager guys, so they do have lots of books. Like a lot of their books comes with like hydration kits that you can just go to their website. Even if you don't have the book, you can go to their website and download. Like the one I went to now, the one for deployment fundamentals. Or what's it called? So what's in the book? The book as so deploymentfundamentals.com. So let's go back to that URL. And you see a lot of their books comes with hydration kit to build all the labs that you need. So okay, deployment fundamental 6 is a new one. Let's open that. So what we want is we want the sample files actually, not that. So if you go on the sample files, I'll post this in the chat window too, if I've not already posted it before. But I'll post that in the chat window. So there's lots more than just one type of hydration kits that you can download from these guys. Google Hangout, post in the chat window. So on the sample file, so for example, this one, Deployment Fundamental 6, the sample files here, if I download that and I open that, and after opening it, if I go here, open the ISO, because it came with an ISO, and you can see they have an hydration DF6. So basically, the same instructions that you followed for the other one, that's what you need to follow for this one too. So source, hydration, again, so this one, they've got some stuff here around deploying this one. So this one would deploy, this one, from what I can see, will deploy DC, gateway, 2 MDT servers, 2 P client, and a W source server. So there's a lot that you can do beyond just config manager deployment. If you get the right hydration kit from them, just follow the instructions and you'll be good to go. Yeah, so look at this. So I've got this option now. Do I want to deploy a DC or a config manager? Okay, I want to deploy this because I have to deploy the DC first, because config manager, during the deployment, we have to join the domain. So they even mentioned that on the page. So everything is, they mentioned that on the page. So deploying this one, they said, using a hyper-V of VMware, create a virtual machine with this one if you've not used the PowerShell script to create it. Start the DC. After booting from hydration CM ISO, after WinPE is loaded, select DC01, wait until the setup is complete, and you see hydration complete message in the final summary. Leave DC01 running while you deploy CM01. So it says one domain DC01 is up and running, you can deploy CM01. Don't forget to leave DC01 running while deploying CM01 since it is joining the domain during the deployment. Use the follow. So basically just leave once this one is finished, start up CM01 is going to do deployment. And then the beauty of this one is, imagine all those tasks that I will have had to do manually for deploying config manager server if I want to play with like the latest version. All those stuff that I will have had to go through, all this stuff of installing WDS, and then the machine is going to restart, and then I'm going to install Windows ADK, and then I'm going to install MDT if I want to integrate with the MDT, and I'm going to install IIS, and then I'm going to install all the config manager. I'm going to install SQL. I'm going to open the firewall port for SQL. I'm going to configure the SQL memory usage. I'm going to extend the AD schema. I'm going to set the AD permissions for config manager. Then I'm going to install config manager. After installing the config manager prerequisite, I don't have to worry about all these anymore. So the one that I'm currently deploying now, if I go back to that, select this year one, next. And you know what? I just go away, come back in like 30 minutes or so time. It's deployed the domain controller fully with all the organizational units that are in those files that we showed earlier. It's deployed all those. It's deployed a DHCP server, DNS configuration. It's done all that for you. In fact, it could, if you wanted, it could deploy like the enterprise CA with all the certificate templates already there. So I just go, come back, domain controller is ready. After that's ready, I go back to this one, start seeing config manager. Instead of selecting this one this time, I select config manager, start, click config manager, next, go back, come back after 3 hours, config manager fully ready for you. Nothing else to do. So as good as this is, there's still better options, but that's like just a start off. So what do you think, guys? Do you think is this difficult to follow? Do you think it's difficult or complicated to follow?
No, it's easy to follow. I think it might be complicated when you start looking into it a bit deeper.
Into customizing it, yeah. So if you want to start customizing it, that's when you have to be someone that knows MDT. Because basically with this, what that means is like, so either Abdul or Taiwo or Handy, just imagine. So what that means is that Taiwo, you're like, oh, I know there's like maybe a particular server configuration that I need to be using in my lab. If you know MDT, all you have to do is do this work of creating the MDT task sequence initially. And then after that, you don't need to worry about that anymore. So basically, you're managing your lab environment with config manager. It's not config manager, it's MDT, but it's also using just task sequences, similar task sequences that you're used to in config manager. So anytime you're like, yeah, actually, I just need 2 domain controllers, and in this one, all you need to do is deploy domain controller, deploy Hyper-V server, come back, it's all done. But even with this, there were still some manual things that we have to do, which is where, so this one, we'll come back to it. So I think we'll be able to not only deploy this today, I think we'll be able to at least start like the deployment of config manager so that you see how it works. So it's doing all that for us. I don't have to worry about that anymore. So I'll just quickly touch on this one. So that's what hydration kits are. And there's lots of them. Again, like the one that I mentioned, there's this one that's going to deploy not just SCCM, but if you're somebody that I want to learn like the old System Center suite. So just watch out on this guy's website because this is System Center suite for 2012. Now, because they released latest version of SCCM, they released a new version for which is the one that we just went through now. So this one. So they released the new hydration kit to say this is the one for. So new hydration kit for SCCM for config manager 15.11 latest version. So watch out on their website for the latest one for System Center because there's a later version of System Center that's out now. And basically, if you're someone that I want to play with the entire System Center suite, all you need to do is download the hydration kit example, go down here, follow the instructions, and you can have the whole System Center suite deployed for you without you having think about the amount of time it's going to take you to manually deploy all this. Now think about like the amount of time that you can save if you just follow these instructions of downloading all the initial files, downloading the optional software, set up your own hydration environment or your lab server, and then basically just boot up from MDT and just start deploying. And then after it's done, you have the whole System Center suite all ready for you to play with. You have orchestrator, config manager, VM manager, data protection manager, service manager, everything all joined to the domain, all configured properly. You just come in and just start playing with them. And then the other thing is that once you've already done the initial hard work of downloading the software, preparing your hydration environment, it is easy for you to destroy the lab. Just delete it completely, destroy it completely. You know what? Now you don't have to go back to start downloading the files again. All you have to do is create the empty VMs, point them to boot from the ISO, start them up, and start the deployment and walk away. And then you're done. So do you think that will be helpful to you guys using an iteration kit for deployment? How many of you think that you play around with this to see if it will be useful for you?
I'll have a play with it. I'm just building a Hyper-V server at the moment. It's not very big.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'll play with some of the smaller kits.
yeah.
Could you use this to deploy to Azure, or has it got to be?
So for Azure, we'll talk about this. So actually, I was gonna put this one up. So maybe we'll talk about this one a little, then we stop for today. This one a bit. So we'll probably have another one where we'll go because there's another one because what we want to do is to not talk about it. So the plan is to go and follow step-by-step guide to use each of these. So that is, we're not just doing talking about it. We're just for like this one, we just follow the step-by-step guide so that even if you don't know MDT or the stuff, you can just follow this step-by-step guide for the initial deployment. Now, if you want to do customization, you have to learn a bit more. But if you don't want to do customization, here's this one. So for Azure RM with PowerShell DSC is the next one that I wanted to talk about before I come back to talk about PowerShell DSC. Now for this one, there's another step-by-step guide that we'll follow. So that will probably won't be this week,
No.
but let me post that. So I'll post that in the chat window and I'll post that there also. So, and actually this one may even surprise you. Taiwo, you know what? Well, I didn't know about this till I started looking into it. So I'll post that in the chat window over there. So for example, we showed earlier where you could get free Azure access for 3 months, right? This one. So if you've not registered for it, just go register for it. Free Azure access for 3 months. And Office 365 EMS access 3 months free. So it's not just 1 month, it's 3 months. And you can follow this one. So what this one will do is, this one says, deploy an Active Directory lab into Azure using Azure RM integrated with PowerShell DSC. And it tells you what to do. And basically, actually, this is interesting. Taiwo, look at this. Have you ever seen this before? So let me actually go to my Outlook first. Log into my Azure RM environment. You like this? So look at this, Taiwo. Have you ever seen this before with many of these templates? Have you ever seen this option before?
No.
Look at that. Deploy to Azure.
Deploy to Azure.
Look at that. So this one will create an AD domain controller with the configuration here, right? But it's not only that. That's just one. So actually, if I go back here and I go back to where the templates are, Azure, they call them Azure Resource Manager templates. This is interesting. Azure Resource Manager templates. So go back to that. Because for Azure, let me just quickly give this background. Again, we'll talk about it later when we are doing the lab. So for Azure, there's two different ways to deploy to Azure. There's something called the classic method. There's something called the modern method, which is what Azure Resource Manager is. If you're looking for more information about that, just Google Azure RM versus Azure Classic. So there's a classic method. So Resource Manager and Classic deployment. So there's two methods. So you can use the classic method of deployment, which is like the old method, the old Azure. But there's this new method of Azure Resource Manager, which is basically the DevOps method, right? Infrastructure as a code, where your whole infrastructure can be a code. So you can come deploy a whole infrastructure, have them all in a template in a code. Just go as this one, if you're using GitHub or anything, as this one, you can integrate it and just go deploy to Azure, and it will deploy a whole template of a whole infrastructure to Azure for you. That's neat. So let's go back to this one. So yeah, just Google Azure RM versus Azure Classic. Read about the difference between the classic deployment method and the resource manager deploy method. But going back to this one now. So if I go, am I logged into? Let me log into my Azure environment now. So that's https manage.windowsazure.com. Yeah, let me sign into Azure. And by the way, let's just check on deployment. Let's see how it's doing. It's almost there because again, remember, it's not just deploying an operating system, it's deploying the operating system, it's deploying DHCP, it's configuring the OUs, it's doing all that. I've not had to come back to do anything again. I've just let it go doing something else, and in the next 2-3 hours, my config manager lab is ready for me. I'll come back. Okay, yeah. So I've got this. Okay, I'm logged into Azure. So let me actually go to the new portal. So new Azure portal. So I'll just go portal.azure.com. So look at this. So templates. The guy talks about like okay, where git. Yeah, here we go. I wanted to build my own DSC configuration for the domain, so I started with the included DSC configuration. So this guy has done a modified one, available on Azure PowerShell directory and GitHub. So here you find lots of templates. There we go. So they'll give information. So so create a new Active Directory forest, new Active Directory OU. Let's go. There's one that I'm looking for. Azure RM. There's one I'm looking for where there's actually like the Azure RM templates on GitHub, and there's lots of templates to pick from. What is that? Let me just Google it. Here we go. So post this. So this is what we'll be talking about the next time where we're demoing automating lab deployment. So this one, infrastructure as a code. So you have all these different templates that different people have written, right? So if I go, for example, Active Directory, new domain HA2DC. So I could go, what would this one do? This one will create 2 new Windows VMs, create a new AD forest domain and 2 DCs in an availability set. Look at that, Taiwo. So I can visualize it if I want. So this is what it's going to create for me. Taiwo, isn't this interesting? And Abdul and Andy, isn't this interesting, right? The way our profession is going.
Yeah, but how can you customize it to pick up, different hard drives, virtual hard drives in Azure?
Definitely, but there's the thing is that if you want to customize it, you have to know beyond what we're talking about, or what we're going to be talking about. You have to really understand the way Azure RM works. You have to really understand PowerShell disaster state configuration.
Right.
So, and not only that, you have to also understand how to build something called JSON templates, because all these templates are based on JSON. So you can do as much customization as you want, but one has to go beyond. So, but this is just like at least to get our feet wet, right? To understand that this is possible. So look at this. So look at somebody has written like this template, which I just clicked on now. This template will deploy this to this CC. He's got it visualized. Now I've logged into my Azure portal here, right? And then from Git itself, I can go look at that. I don't even have to copy this. So if I wanted, I could go here and I could go log into my Azure. So actually, yeah, log into my Azure, because again, that's one thing. The reason why I showed you earlier that there are 2 different methods is if you log into your Azure the normal way, which is add Azure AD account, you won't be able to use Azure RM. So if you want to use, so you can either use the classic method, which is add Azure account, or you can use, which will allow you to log into your Azure account using PowerShell, or you can use the new method of Azure Resource Manager, but you can't use add Azure account. You have to use login Azure RM account. Then that will log you into your Azure RM account. So if I go login, this is messed up. So if I go clear, I'll just close this and just open it again. Yeah, that's better. The other one was really messed up. And by the way, why this one is still responding, let's, okay, skip that. Almost done with the domain controller. So we're going to start the config manager. So if I go login Azure RM account, and then it's going to ask me for my username and password to log into Azure. So then you can go from here and then start pasting the code one by one. So that's one way to do the deployment, right? So you have the code, the PowerShell DSC code ready, and then you go log in Azure RM account. It's going to log me into my Azure RM account. It's going to pop up with a username and password form now, if it works, if it responds. But I need to close Skype. My computer is struggling. Computer seems to be struggling, so we'll get there. So log in Azure RM account. Come on. And then, yeah, so look at all that. So I posted that, all the templates there. So look at all these templates. You can go to like all these templates and see what exactly like many of these templates are doing. Oh, okay, yeah, here we go. So sign into my account. So and then go yeah, and then now I'm signed into my Azure RM account, not the classic account, not the classic method. Okay, so but look at this. So I can go from here now and now start have like some of the code I will talk about the next time we talk about this. So where I can now start copying the code and start pasting the code here. And we won't be doing anything complicated again. What we just do is we have a guide that will follow step by step and will deploy a lab environment on Azure using Azure RM and PowerShell DSC. So it's a step-by-step guide. We're not doing anything complicated. If we want to customize, we'll have to learn more. It's beyond this, but this is just a step-by-step guide I'll be doing in this series. So that's one method. I can log into that and then do it from there. The other method is I can go from here. Look at this table. I'm logged into Azure portal, right? I can just go, look at this. It will deploy 2 Active Directory servers for me. To create a new AD Forest domain and 2 DCs in an availability set. Okay, deploy to Azure. This is interesting, right? So it will take the template that's there and it's going to deploy everything directly to my Azure account. So by the time this is done, I'll have 2 Active Directory domain controllers configured in an availability set. So it's asking me for the storage account name. So Taiwo, when you're talking about, oh, can I use my template? This is one of the ways I think, I've not tested it, this is one of the ways where you can, because you can specify the image you want it to use here. So I'm sure that if you have a custom image, you can specify it here. So rather than using the default image. So because now it's just brought me here, now I can add some customization. Storage account name, let me call this Azure RM test 1. Okay. What else? Administrator password. Let's set. I can set the VM size that I want. Windows Server. I can configure a different image if I want. So if you have a custom image, I think you can. I've not tested it, but I think you can configure it here. I can set the location that I want it to deploy to here also. I can create a new resource group or use an existing one if I want to, but I don't have an existing one. So I just say LB, I just say, what did I call the first one? Azure RM test one. Just say Azure RM resource group one, whatever. I'll destroy everything at the end of the day. So I have my password here. Domain name. Let's see. So domain name, if I go lightbulbazure.com. So that will be the domain name of the virtual machine that I'm creating. So DNS prefix. The review the legal terms. Oh no, cancel. No, I click OK first. Never review the legal terms. So you have to be a bit careful with this. If you have your Azure account linked to like a payment account, because this one is not linked to any payment account. It's the version that we showed to you earlier, this one, which is Azure Pass for 3 months that I'm using. So because some of the templates that people have written may be actually using things that are going to require you to pay money. Maybe some special Cisco switch, not the default Azure switch or something. So you have to agree to that if you're going to be deploying that. But just if you have it linked to a payment, be careful. If not, you're doing demo anyway, so that's all right. So then if I just make all those light changes, I click create. Validation successful. And look at that, deployment has started. Now, by the end of like the last time I tried this, I think it took about 30 minutes or so. I'll have 2 domain controllers in high availability configuration ready on my Azure account. So, and look at this, my domain controller is fully ready. Is it ready? Is it ready yet? Is my domain controller ready? I think it's ready because I think I saw a message around being successful earlier. So I'll guess it's ready. Is my domain controller ready? Domain controller may struggle because I think it's got just one virtual processor. Come on. So what's the password? Okay, actually, I think I'll just close this. And what is that again? Connect. Don't want that. I just want the normal one. Well, I need to know what the password is. Oh, okay, here we go. Oh, it's still installing. It's not finished yet. Yeah. So you get there eventually. So, but again, I don't have to be looking after this and babysitting it. I just leave it alone to do whatever I want, whatever it's doing. And this one also, look at it, it's starting the deployment. And you know what, when I come back, I'll have whatever was in the template, I'll have it all deployed to my Azure. So this is the old concept called infrastructure as a code, where your whole infrastructure is basically a code. It's not something that you have to manually be deployed. You just write a code. So whatever configuration changes you need to make, you just put it in a code, deploy it. That's all. And you have lots of templates that different people have written here. And you can write your own, we can write our own if we know enough. But yeah, I think that's probably where we'll probably pause for today. So any questions regarding the ones that we've mentioned? Is there any one that particularly that you think that okay, this one is more interesting to me than this one? Which one of the two that we've at least just talked about today? We've demoed one of them. So is there any one that you think would be like a bit more interesting to you? Abdul? Hello, Abdul, you still there? Andy, is there any particular one any particular method
Uh,
Hydration kit, Azure RM with partial DSC.
I think I'm going to play with hydration kits for now.
Yeah.
But looking at the Azure RM, I think that's something I definitely need to learn in the future because that's the way like you say, that's the way we're going.
Yep, it is the way our industry is going, fortunately or unfortunately. What about Taiwo?
It means there's something new to learn, so it's fortunate for me. I like that.
Yeah, oh, okay, nice. That's really nice. Taiwo, anyone that, so you think you'll be playing with the hydration kit or you want to play more with this one?
I
With
think
the,
I'll play with the hydration kits purely because of the cost.
yeah, okay, yeah, nice.
Probably better spending my money buying a bit more RAM for the server.
Yeah, nice. Nice one. How about Taiwo? What do you think? Or what are your thoughts?
Um, well, I think I'll be using both. Well, I'll be using the first hydration kit because I was going to play with System Center
Yeah.
rebuilding, so that would help me a lot. But
Mm.
then the Azure RM also will be useful because I'm also playing with Azure,
Yeah.
so that would also be useful. So I will
Yeah.
be using both,
Yeah.
but I'll start
Yeah.
with hydration kit
Yeah.
because
So,
that's
yeah,
the
I mean, to me, I think the main key point around this is you don't have to be an expert, or we don't have to be an expert. I'm not an expert in these things. I know some MDT. I think I can do some customization if I were to sit down with it. But again, we don't really have to know these technologies in depth to start using them. You've got all these hydration kits that people have already created that you can just go to the website, follow the instructions, and you can have stuff that you need ready. So it's already finished deploying ADDS. I don't have to be deploying this manually. It's deployed ADDS. Now it's configuring it. It's going to deploy DHCP with the scopes. Then I can deploy config manager without having to do. I'm not doing anything. I'm not touching anything anymore. And the same thing with the one for the Azure. So we'll do follow a similar lab of just deploying something simple. So the one for Azure RM, I think it's going to be deploying, I think maybe one domain controller and one SQL. Or maybe I look for one that will deploy domain controller and config manager also to Azure. That and we just follow this the next time. And that's basically so just follow that, follow step by step. So you don't have to be an expert. You just so now if you now want to do customizations and start building your own, now you have to go more in depth. But if you just want to something that you can use to play around with, whatever technologies you're playing around with, if it's config manager, fine. You just deploy that and it's gonna be ready for you in a few hours time and then you come back, it's ready. If you want to blow it away, easily come back, easily deploy. So for me now, this is like really fun because before we came, I deployed the full domain controller and config manager, played around with config manager. I didn't even think twice. Before I would have thought twice. I didn't even think twice. I just deleted the VMs. All I have to do is again, just create the VMs, right click, start them. It will start the deployment for me. I don't have to worry about, oh, I have to begin to deploy Windows ADK and extended this schema again. Oh my God. I don't have to worry about all that again. I just come, start it, go away, come back. It's all fully ready for me when I come back. I just start playing with them. Okay, guys. So if there's no questions, then I think we'll call it a day and then we'll pick up from here the next time we talk about this. So the next demo that we'll be doing, so I moved this one earlier. So we'll do a demo on Azure RM with PowerShell DSC. Follow a step-by-step guide. Then we'll do a demo on PowerShell DSC also. So that we have three methods that we could use if we want to automate some deployment.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, is that Abdul?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Actually, I sent you on
Oh,
chat.
okay. Let's see. Hydration. Yeah. Oh, okay. David, I need your help to purchase my lab host machine. I'm not sure which to select, desktop or home server. I'm planning for an investment, but I need the ability for expansion. Hey, what do you think? I think I'll let others chime in first, and I'll give my own opinion. So, what do you think, Taiwo and Andy? So, Abdul is saying he needs help to know he wants to purchase a lab host. Should he select a desktop or a home server? Is planning for something that he can easily expand later. So what's your advice or from your own experience? I know Taiwo has a powerful home lab. I'm not sure if Andy has a powerful home lab, but what's your thoughts? What would you advise?
I think a server gives you more scope for expansion. Generally, they tend to have more slots for memory and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I agree with
Uh,
that.
I've just got an old Hewlett Packard ML110, a sort of basic entry level server.
Yep.
I've managed to find an array controller for it off eBay.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got all the parts sort of sat around. I need to start putting it together tomorrow.
Yep.
It's got 16 gig of RAM, but it's only got 2 memory slots. So, it's a small basic server. I should have got something bigger, but I managed to get that cheap off someone.
Ah, okay. Nice.
I'm trying to save the money for the exams.
Understood. Yeah. And Taiwo, what would you advise? So I do agree that servers do have more capability to expand on. So Taiwo, yeah, carry on. Sorry.
Oh, well, it's the same thing. Server, I think, well, I've used like a normal desktop before and it's very, very, very slow,
Mhm,
painful, and annoying.
mhm.
So, but I think servers are much more better. You can, I mean, with more resource on it, and you can increase the memory. The processors are far better. So, I think server is the way to go. Personally, that's what I would go for.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I'm not sure if that answers your question. So for yeah, for ha- like okay, I have a home desktop. So I have multiple. I have a home desktop at home that has 32 gig of RAM, and it's got the AMD FX that has 6 cores. So it's a single processor, but it has 6 cores on it. So I have a SSD in it also. So it is fast and powerful, but then the issue that that I'm eating is with it is the one that have been mentioned is the motherboard only supports up to 32 gig of RAM. So if ever in the future I'm like, I want to increase this is not serving me anymore. The only option I have is to throw it away or sell it, not throw it away, and sell it and then get a new one. So I'll say it depends. For $1,200, that's like a huge budget. I think you can get something that's really, really powerful. Um, for me, though, I would advise that even though you may get spinning disks, I'll say get a combination of spinning disk and SSDs because it makes a lot of difference. Yeah. Okay. What about budget on server? I think like let's see, Amazon or even eBay. Like let's go towards server.
I
So like
think
all
it's
this,
cheaper on eBay.
yeah.
I might be wrong, but
You mean the one on eBay, and then it also depends. So do you, if you don't want too much noise, so it depends. So you could get some like older ones on eBay, but they may be like the noisy ones. So it does depend. Um, like this one, maximum supported RAM is 64 gig. That's like so. To me, I'll say it does depend, Abdul. I don't think it's. I don't think. I think you can still get a desktop, a normal desktop. Because, for example, like you've got this tower server, and the maximum it can go up to is 64 gig. So there are desktops today that you can get that can go up to 64 gig, 128 gig with the memory, with the motherboard. So you can even get your own motherboard, the um, your own motherboard, and just look for information on the motherboard. So get your own motherboard that supports a lot of RAM. Um, but then the other issue that you eat is the processor. So you eat an issue with the processor also. So it's kind of like I would say the decision is really up to you. Have to because if you the other thing is if you get this one, right, you can get desktop that's really powerful. It will have you'll be able to have a lot of RAM in it. You'll be able to have SSDs in it that'll be super fast, really fast, right? But then the limitation that you eat later is exactly you eat the CPU limitation later because CPUs of desktop machines can only be so powerful. Whereas in a server, you can have a motherboard that will have two processor slots, right? You have two processor slots where even if one that is filled for now, the other one you can feed it later and it can have like lots of cores in it and be super powerful. So you probably can just follow Taiwo's advice. So it depends on you. You can probably follow Taiwo's advice. In my own home, or sorry, in my home, I have two servers and one desktop machine. I use them for different purposes. So, because I know that you mentioned that you want to do labs on VMware and you want to do labs on NetApp and stuff like that. So, if you're going to be doing labs on VMware and NetApp, the issue, because the issue that you'll be eating, or that I know 100% that you'll be eating. So, number one is the drives. But with the drive, if you have SSDs, um, you can bypass that because in like the lab that I use for VMware and NetApp, I have two VMware um, um, hosts running in VMware ESXi. So two VMware hosts running in VMware ESXi, and like two NetApp storage running the virtual version of NetApp simulator running. So the issue that I'm running those on my desktop. The reason why I'm running those on my desktop is because I can't have VMware and Hyper-V on the same machine. So because I already have Hyper-V on this server here, I have to use VMware for to practice that. So you can get around that also if you want to do that, you can get around that by having multiple hard drives that you swap. So if you want to do the one that requires VMware for your lab, you put the hard drive that has VMware, or you have different partitions, whichever way. And if you want to do the one that has Hyper-V, you switch to a separate partition and do the one that has Hyper-V. So you can do it that way also. So the issue is for hard drive, you can get by with SSDs because they are super fast. I mean, I've never had an issue with the SSDs ones that I have. But then the issue that I'm eating now with my VMware lab and with the ASX host and NetApp simulators is the CPU. It's because now they are processing a lot. Now the CPU is getting maxed out. So for the desktop. So I will probably also agree that if I know it took me a long time to get there, but I'll probably also agree that if you go for a server, it will probably be much better. So if you go for a server, maybe an old server on eBay, I think you can get really good deals, like Taiwo said. Maybe Taiwo has like much more information about that because Taiwo's got powerful servers at home. But then the thing, the thing you have to be careful about is the noise. Some of them can be noisy. But yeah, you can get cheap or used servers. You can get used servers that will be cheap, but then they will be powerful also. Yeah, I think you can get. So, I'm not sure. So I think so Abdul also, I think if you put it on the community page, because there's wisdom in like a lot of people also commenting. So I think if you put it on the community page, lots of people may be able to give you links to different servers that they've used and that are really good. I know the one I use is good. Um, it's good, but I think you can probably do and get something much better than that. So I use this server, but I think you can get something because this one is even much more older. I think you can get something much more better than this if you. I use the Dell PowerEdge 2970, but I think this one is even way much more older. I think you can get something more powerful because what happens is Dell have stopped supporting some later versions of servers than this one, and then compression starts throwing them out. But nevertheless they are powerful servers. So this one supports a maximum of 32 gig of RAM. So, but then the thing is that it's got two powerful processors. So the processors are powerful. So it's got two 6-core processors. So that's 12 cores in total. So yeah. So I'll probably advise also like go for a server, but then you have to look for like a much better one. Okay, does that at least help you a little bit? And then post it on the community and then get other ideas from other people and see what people have to say to you. See, yeah, look at that. It's creating AD subnets. It's doing all that. I don't have to touch it anymore. Okay, man. That's all for today. So we'll meet again next time. Thanks very much, guys.
Yeah,
Have a
thanks a lot.
wonderful evening.
Anyway, thanks.
Yeah, speak to you later. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.